Hills and Valleys is a podcast that uncovers stories from leaders in healthcare, tech, and everything in between. Straight from the heart of Silicon Valley, we give you a look at the good, the bad, and the future, one episode at a time. Brought to you by Petro Medical. Hey everyone, Omar M. Khatib, Director of Growth here at Petro Medical with another great episode of Hills and Valleys. And we have a special guest who's come back on. This is a vintage guest from our early days that we had the pleasure of meeting a couple years ago. And that's Colonel Kevin Chung, who's the chair and professor of medicine over at the Uniformed Services University. Dr. Chung, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Omar, for inviting me back. I guess the first episode went okay. So
it was a great episode. I still get a lot of comments from physicians and healthcare leaders on it because it was a fantastic episode. I'm going to leave that in the show notes for those of the audience who haven't actually listened to it yet. And, you know, before we have a great topic today, we want to hear about what's going on with you and how your time has been at USU, but also talk about updates in COVID. But I have to call this out. Mm-hmm. I knew you when you didn't have a whole lot of Twitter followers many years ago. and now, I mean, you got thousands of people who follow you, and not just in the medical community. There's plenty of people who I know who are in government, politics, and other arenas who follow you as a trusted source on Twitter. And I'll leave your Twitter handle down there. But yeah, I mean, it seems like the Twitter community has really embraced you. And I mean, how does it feel?
Yeah, thanks, Omar. I still consider myself a bit of a novice in terms of Twitter, compared to, many of my colleagues that are out there with, hundreds of thousands of followers. Just having a few thousand isn't that big of a deal, I don't think. And, I'm fortunate to have, experienced what I've experienced through this pandemic. And unfortunately, we just sort of all of us got thrown into the wolves and we're drinking from a fire hose trying to deal with a disease that nobody knows anything about. And, Twitter was really my source for information for me. And so I relied on many of my colleagues and their posts. And really, I just started tweeting my experience taking care of patients within the setting of Walter Reed and other hospitals that I work at. And it just kind of grew from there. So, I'm happy to share my experience, but I feel like I get much more out of Twitter than what I'm able to contribute.
I think we all definitely we definitely feel that way. And what I think is interesting is that this is definitely, this pandemic is new for all of us. But you're very much well versed in dealing with crises like this, because I remember you mentioned that you were really influenced in your training early on because you lived through critical care medicine during 9/11. And so I think, hearing from you and your perspective is going to be incredibly valuable. And before we launch into one thing I do have to mention, so we're 1 week post Veterans Day. So happy belated Veterans Day. And thank you very much for your service. And one thing I do want to mention to your audience is, like, it's great to thank our veterans on the day of, but I don't think it should be limited to one day. I think that we should always find a way to thank our veterans, because at the end of the day, we have brave people like you who sign up, and whatever our country asks you to do, whether it's plant flowers or go off to war or be on the front lines, you do it and serve our country. And so I'm very grateful and appreciative of that.
Well, I appreciate the support, Omar. Thank you.
Absolutely. So why don't we do a quick, give us a quick update on things at USU. You've done a lot of great things there as chair, and tell us what's new.
Yeah, thanks, Omar. So, since our last conversation, we were, things were progressing pretty nicely within my department. I was trying to set up, multiple research efforts, really tied around diagnostics and therapeutics in sepsis. I think as we were gearing up to get a number of programs up and running, the pandemic hit and really changed everything. And all of a sudden we had to really rally around this crisis that all of us were facing, and help address it as a team. And so it was really an all hands on deck situation across the country. I mean, if since you follow Twitter, you know that everybody was really galvanized and really united in helping prepare healthcare workers and the public for this crisis. And so as we were hearing stuff from Italy and reports from China and you know, the reports that were just mind-blowing, with hospitals being overrun and triage conditions that were occurring in Italy, that really woke us up as a medical community. And it, you know, the military medical system was no different. So we all prepared as best as we could. One of the things that we did was, you know, we're a global health system. It's not, you know, we're different in that the military as a health system has hospitals all around the globe, you know, 51 hospitals in total, over 300 clinics. And so trying to prepare globally as a military health system was a bit of a challenge.
I imagine.
And trying to standardize care. So we're not talking about one city or one region. We're talking about globally, how do we begin to communicate, and how do we begin to standardize care across the board? And so we initially created a practice management guide. We wanted to call it a clinical practice guideline, but there are certain rules involved with declaring that something is a clinical practice guideline, and we didn't have time to have the document go through all the checks and balances for it to be officially called a clinical practice guideline. And so over a weekend, seriously, over a weekend, I enlisted the help of 30 of my colleagues. We put together a guidance document that we called the Practice Management Guide, and really just went through, you know, this is how you screen, this is how you initially treat, this is how you, you know, triage patients for the ICU. These are some baseline guidance for treating patients who are critically ill, so on and so forth. It initially was about a 60-page document. You know, we tried to make it as concise as possible, but as we started writing the document, we realized that we wanted to cover, you know, sort of broad areas to include deployed medicine and austere, you know, care in the austere environment and other things. And so obviously infectious control, PPE posture, surge capacity, how to deal with, you know, when your hospital and ICUs get overwhelmed, what guidance do we have? And so we created this document, initially with about 30 providers, and released it immediately, sort of like the burn resuscitation guidelines that we long ago sort of disseminated widely overnight. This was a document that we disseminated through DHA, Defense Health Affairs, and we were able to do this. And it was well received because it helped put everybody on the same page. And fast forward till now, we are now on our 6th version. It's over 150 pages. It pretty much encompasses the entire gamut of COVID care, from outpatient care to inpatient care to post-discharge to radiology, special populations like peds, OB, so on and so forth. And so it's sort of evolved into this huge document that is a one-stop shop for information for caring for COVID patients within this, you know, scope of the military health system. And so that's now on the USU website. It's also on the DHA website and available. Simultaneously, you know, as an intensivist, I needed to really stay in touch and reach out to all the intensivists in the military. And so we started a WhatsApp group, COVID group. And, you know, within a couple of weeks, it grew to about 200, 250 individuals.
Fantastic.
The way that we communicated, hey, we're starting to see an uptick in patients here in this area. And then we're comparing notes, trading, you know, exchanging treatment protocols and sharing new emerging data as it came on. You know, what I did was I scan my Twitter feed and look for any valuable information and basically cut and paste my Twitter feed into WhatsApp to
Mm.
you know, amplify information to those folks who aren't on Twitter. And so that really helped a lot. On top of that, we also started having case conferences, weekly case conferences that was hosted by the Joint Trauma System. And I don't know if we talked about this in the last podcast. I think we did. One of the ways we continue to evolve and improve during combat operations was by sort of talking through cases and talking about how we managed certain, patient treatment
Mm-hmm.
and so on and so forth, and and shared that information across the entire, sort of system. And we were able to, by discussing these cases, we were able to identify gaps in our knowledge and fill those gaps and continue to improve and modify and refine our processes over time. And so these case conferences were an avenue for us to be able to continuously improve our processes, identify areas where we were weak, disseminate information when new information came online, so on and so forth. And so that was a very powerful tool for us to really, number one, get on the same page, and number two, share our experiences and really learn from each other in the military health system. That's evolved tremendously. Now, we started out as a military, we're taking care of patients within our own health system, right?
Mm.
But also as a military, we're getting pulled out of our own institutions. We're trying to take care of COVID patients amongst our beneficiaries, but we're also at the same time getting pulled to go on missions to help support the civilian population. And so that was a constant tension because you don't want to deplete an entire hospital. If you have 90% military physicians, you can't take all the military physicians away, because then you don't have a hospital to take care of the patients that you're
Right.
assigned to. And so when the Javits Center got stood up and the Comfort was deployed, that's the hospital ship that went to New York. That was a big deal because it pulled a quarter of our physicians and nurses out of, for example, Walter Reed. And this happened across the military. But that was something to deal with. And then when Texas got hit, Southern California, Florida, we got tasked again. So the military ended up sending a bunch of teams, augmentation task forces, and rural rapid response teams to a variety of different locations in southern Texas in the border. And boy, the experience that they had taking care of those patients in those small community hospitals in the civilian sector was just, it's just unimaginable what they had to go through. That was sort of an evolution of our role as a military medicine system in support of COVID. And now we're dealing with the third wave. We're all bracing for that next mass deployment to wherever we're needed. The problem is that geographically, it's not confined to one state or another. It's widespread. So we're all scratching our heads trying to figure out what's going to happen now. There's a lot of uncertainty for sure.
Yeah, and I think that not just in medicine, the interesting thing I think is, and I wrote again, inspired by you, and you encouraged me to do this a year ago about writing about some of my approaches in medical devices on the marketing side. But I think what COVID is it accelerated a lot of trends that were already existing, but it accelerated them instead of over a span of 10 years within a year. And I think coming out of this, this is the first time I think in human history that everybody in the world is rethinking everything. How do I take my kids to school? How do I stay healthy? How do I communicate with peers? How do I work out from home? And so I think coming out of this, we're gonna, at least here in the States, we're gonna really redesign our world and society and upgrade our systems, because a lot of the systems we're living in were designed by people who are all dead. And
Mhm.
so, and I think that's the benefit. But the most important thing is that we got to make it through this really tough period right now. And so it's yeah, it's tough. And again, it's inspiring to see healthcare leaders like yourself and all the nurses, doctors, and medical staff who are putting themselves at risk on the front lines to help with things. But it is scary to see the spike. Um, you mentioned earlier in our conversation before jumping on some of the approaches around blood purification. Now, I learned a lot from you about ECMO, and you had this fascinating approach about using ECMO when it came to cytokine storms. And a lot of people are familiar with the cytokine storms with COVID. Can you tell us a little bit about how USC is approaching that, and what you're starting to find?
Yeah, thanks, Omar. And your comment about technologies and capabilities being accelerated during times of crisis is something that I truly, I mean, I take to heart. It's something that we've seen happen in wartime, and
Hmm.
we're now seeing it during a pandemic. People are desperate for solutions. We don't have time to wait for certain therapeutics to come online, uh,
Hmm.
logic or otherwise. And so, with regards to blood purification, as we all know, COVID elicits a host response that's characterized by just uncontrolled inflammation that is primarily focused on the lung, but then goes throughout the entire body. And so, with regards to blood purification, this is a story that actually starts about 10 years ago, believe it or not. There is, I don't know if you know about DARPA. It's Defense Advanced Research Program Agency.
Hmm.
And DARPA was founded in the 50s after the United States experienced Sputnik. Sputnik represented a defeat technologically for the United States. The Russians beat us to space. And at that time, the government vowed to never lose technologically ever again foreign adversaries. And so they created this agency called DARPA. And DARPA, you may not know or may know, provided seed funding for the internet,
Hmm.
provided seed funding for the Da Vinci robotic system.
I was just gonna say, all surgical robotics came out of
Yeah,
the military. That's
right.
where
So
it started.
it came out of a DARPA seed program. And a very little not well known program called dialysis like therapeutics. It's a small program in relation to the others for DARPA, $150 million. And the program called for technologies that could identify pathogen, regardless of whatever pathogen it was, bacteria, virus, whatever, and remove pathogens from the bloodstream real time, regardless of the pathogen, and treat the patient. So that was
Interesting.
the program. And believe it or not, I think I talked to you about blood purification in the burn unit and how
Yeah.
studying high volume hemofiltration, did a multi-center trial, and so on and so forth. Well, I learned over time that that's just not enough blood purification for cytokine removal, for example. And so anyway, so that's sort of foundational, sort of laying the foundation there. So anyway, so I was involved as a DoD representative for this program as the DoD rep, because they wanted, they're trying to be fair, and they're trying to get input from all aspects of government to include DoD medicine. And so I was involved as the subject matter expert on the DoD side. And this program was a 5-year program, resulted in 2 technologies that sort of became, because of the investment, they were able to get close to transition into commercialization. And so they basically were the last 2 technologies standing after evaluation within this aspect of this program. And so that yielded 2 technologies, one of them called Serif 100. And both technologies do relatively the same thing in terms of pathogen removal. That was the goal, right? And so the Serif 100, it's manufactured and invented by a company called Xthera. It's a heparin sulfate-based technology where heparin sulfate, which is a relative to heparin, is bound to a bunch of beads, and it's basically a hemoperfusion cartridge. Heparin sulfate is negatively charged. And believe it or not, it happens to be a major component of the vascular endothelium and the glycocalyx. Glycocalyx exists to target foreign substances like pathogens and
Right.
present them to host cells, immune cells.
Right.
And so this is considered a biomimetic extracorporeal blood purification device targeting pathogen removal specifically. Okay.
Fascinating. So essentially, it's you're purifying the blood, and at the same time arming the blood with the right tools to identify and eliminate pathogens.
It is basically removing the pathogens specifically directly.
Directly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
okay, even better.
So as blood passes through this filter, if there's any pathogens in the blood, circulating in the blood, whether it's bacteria from a bacteremia like Staph aureus, or, you know, in the case of COVID viremia, it will attract those pathogens and bind into this filter, hence providing intravascular source control that's non-pharmacologic and pathogen agnostic.
That's unbelievable, because essentially you get all the benefits of a pharmaceutical without the taxing of the body, the side effects or anything, and it's immediate. That's unbelievable.
Potentially. So that's the concept, right? So that's one technology, the Serif 100. There's a second technology that's based on a protein called FCMBL. Okay, it's a proprietary protein. This technology was created and invented by Wyss Institute, WYSS Institute in Boston, affiliated with Harvard. And this protein is essentially mimicking naturally occurring opsonins. And if you think back to biology, opsonins are present in the body, circulating in the bloodstream to tag on to foreign invaders like bacteria to present them to host immune cells. Okay, that's an opsonin. And so they took this protein, combined it with an FC portion of an immunoglobulin, and now encoded this entire hollow fiber filter with this protein, so that as blood is going through this filter, pathogens are attracted to the protein. And it turns out it's a mannose binding lectin is the opsonin protein. Mannose is present on pretty much every non-mammalian pathogen cell, you know, so bacteria, gram-positive, gram-negatives, viruses, CMV, Ebola, these all have on their cell wall mannose, and so this protein captures it, and that is a second technology. So fast forward, as these technologies were sort of coming into transitioning to the commercial sector, they were going through the IDE process, the investigational device exemption studies, first in human, so on and so forth. The Serif 100 was a little bit further along. They had already received a CE mark. I knew about these technologies, obviously, because I've been involved with the DARPA program for 10 years. You know, I remember distinctly in November of 2019, having a conversation with one of the company folks. And I said, hey, you know, this is great, because they were talking about, you know, how do we get this product studied, and is it filling a need? And I told them, I was like, you know, shaking my head, you know, guys, this is an excellent technology that's looking for a problem to solve. And I said this specifically, quote, what you need is a pandemic for your technology to take off. I swear it was, you know, next thing I know, 3 months later, what happens? The pandemic just takes over the country, right? And so one of the, you know, as we were preparing for the wave of patients in March, I gave the company a call and said, hey, what do you think? Are you guys ready for human use? And obviously, you know, it was not FDA approved. So we had to go through the expanded access pathway.
And
So
are you able to
what
share
that means is, say again?
Are you able to share the name of the company?
Yeah,
Or
Xterra. Yeah.
Xterra. Oh, how do you spell that?
Xterra. Extera. So
Got
that's
it.
the company, and the technology is Serif 100.
Got it.
Serif 100. Anyway, so I connected the company with and the technology with our nephrologists.
Mm-hmm.
This is a extracorporeal blood purification therapy, and who knows that better than the nephrologist, right? So
Right. Yeah.
nephrologist on board. There was Dr. Jim Oliver, Colonel Jim Oliver, as well as Stephen Olson got involved. They evaluated the science behind what we were trying to do, learned about the DARPA program, and so on and so forth. They became excited. They were like, okay, let's be ready to treat patients if we need to. Because at that time, if you remember, we had nothing.
Right.
The therapeutics. Convalescent plasma was not in existence. We were still unsure about steroids. Remdesivir was not available. Okay. We had hydroxychloroquine, which doesn't work. My first 10 patients, we had everybody on hydroxychloroquine, and it just didn't do anything. So we were desperate for a potential solution, and we hypothesized that patients were probably getting sick, transitioning from isolated pneumonia to multi-organ failure because of viremia. And that was still a hypothesis at that point because we weren't sure. We didn't have any studies to point to, and coronaviruses don't typically work that way. The common cold, they don't disseminate intravascularly like that. Viremia is not a big deal, but since then, investigators have determined that there's a clear link between severity of illness and detection of virus RNA in the blood. Okay, so that connection, and so the higher the level of viral RNA, the sicker the patients. And so there is this clear link, and so. Back then, we didn't know this. So without that information, we hypothesized that there's likely virus in the blood. This technology was invented exactly for this scenario, for a pandemic like this. It's a medical countermeasure. And as we started taking care of patients, we identified one patient who was just, in bad ARDS, in multi-organ failure and shock. And we approached the family. We talked to the FDA, and they said that there's a compassionate use sort of pathway. And we went through that pathway, did all the paperwork, got consent, obviously. And the family was willing to, because we had no other options, right? So we were desperate, treated the patient, remarkable clinical improvement. Pressure just went from really high to very low, pretty temporarily related to the initiation of this extracorporeal therapy. We treated 2 additional patients, same kind of deal. We presented and reported our case report in critical care exploration. So that's out for the general public. And as a result of our very limited experience, I mean, we're not doing randomized controlled trials in the middle of a crisis right now. I mean, that we didn't, and so very minimal experience there. And then 20 patients that have been treated in Europe, and prior safety data all lumped in. The company submitted a packet to the FDA for an EUA application, and they got granted an EUA, emergency use authorization. And so, so now it's available for use if the clinicians believe that it will help. There have been over 70 therapies thus far. The outcomes are pretty remarkable in a select patient population that we're interested in. And you can't just release a product like that is quasi-experimental. It's sort of a therapeutic that nobody's, there's no randomized controlled trials, and not take that opportunity to study it. You gotta study. We have a responsibility, an obligation, if we have a therapy that we're using on patients, to see what's happening and collect data, and that's a responsibility. And so our group submitted for a grant with Health Affairs. The CARES Act that first supplemental that was released. To a lot of those funds went to Operation Warp Speed, like tune of like $1 billion plus.
Wow.
We got a very small investment, about $15 million, to evaluate not only this therapy, but the DARPA technologies. We're calling it the Purify program. After blood purification, it just makes sense. And we're systematically evaluating not only this technology, but plan to evaluate the Garnet, which is the FCNBL technology, over time. First for COVID, because we're in this emergency and we don't have a vaccine yet, so on and so forth. We don't have reliable therapies that is reversing things dramatically. Remdesivir is good, but decreases hospital days in patients on O2. Doesn't seem to help as much in patients that are already intubated. So that's a problem. And then, obviously steroids is something that has been found to be helpful. So we're doing those things also, but this could be an adjunct to all that. And we're going to evaluate it during the period of COVID. And then we're going to then take this technology. We've applied for an investigational device exemption to do a pilot study in sepsis, in general sepsis, with evidence of circulating pathogens. So you have to have either a gram stain or PCR that detects some pathogen in the blood with septic shock. And we're going to randomize them to therapy versus standard of care. And so that is going to be the pilot. And then if that's successful, we're planning on a pivotal trial to bring this on the market. So that it takes a while for that to happen.
Right. Yeah,
and if this was non-pandemic conditions, all this probably would take, with funding, planning the trials, would take, 5 to 7, 8 years.
Right.
All that condensed into 8 months. And here we are, we have a protocol for the observational. So we're calling it Purify OBS, to evaluate the data, collect data on the 70 plus patients that have been treated thus far. We're going to compare that to probably a retrospective cohort, contemporaneous cohort, and be able to compare that way, since we couldn't do a randomized control trial from the get-go. So that's going to provide us some information. And really, what we're talking about here is an entirely different way of attacking sepsis. Instead of, most therapies are, antimicrobials excluded. Antimicrobials, are and antivirals are basically addressing the pathogen, right? However, we know that with the emergence of drug resistance, we have lots of extremely drug-resistant pathogens out there in terms of bacteria, and then when dealing with a virus that is a novel virus, you don't have any immediate therapies. So I see this as an adjunctive therapy to either existing or proposed pharmacologic solutions that can be synergistic together, and in terms of addressing and achieving source control in the bloodstream. And so, if this type of approach is helpful, then it could be among the first therapies that could be our first line of defense for unknown emerging pathogens in the future.
That's amazing.
We don't have a therapy because it's new. You know what I mean?
Right.
And this therapeutic, because it's a non-pharmacologic, pathogen agnostic extracorporeal blood pathogen removal device. It doesn't matter what the bug is. It doesn't matter what the virus is. If it circulates in the blood, it will remove it.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah. And so that's the concept behind this entire program that is now just coming to fruition as a result of this, incredible crisis that we're all experiencing.
Right. And again, it's, I it wasn't much of a prediction, but I predicted many months ago in the early spring that, we would see just unbelievable American innovation and ingenuity as a result of the pandemic, and we're seeing that now. And I mean, we're suffering a lot of loss because of it, but in the future, I mean, who knows? I mean, there's going to be another threat of a pandemic of some type, I'm sure, 10, 20, 30 years from now, and it may not even have a dent on our society because we're able to use these types of approaches, which is just remarkable. And you helped me out here because when I posted earlier this week about having you on, Dr. Ashish Khanna, who's the head of research for anesthesiology and critical care over at Wake Forest, specifically asked about innovation and therapies in the septic shock area. So we got that one for you, Dr. Khanna. But that's just
awesome.
Absolutely remarkable. And what's really interesting, Dr. Chung, is it's interesting that Northwell did a study with about 9,000 patients recently and found that something like 39% of them end up with acute kidney injury. And who would have thought that while that was coming out months prior, that you were able to think about this therapeutic approach with with dialysis and with nephrologists, right? And it just happened to coincidentally, I don't believe in coincidences anymore, go hand in hand,
Yeah.
And this is just
we were.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, we were ideally positioned to do this and bring in the nephrologist, but to just go off on that point and just address that point specifically. This technology potentially prevents AKI because really AKI occurs within the context of the host response to circulating pathogen and the dysregulated host response that results in end organ injury. Well, we're trying to nip that in the bud before it happens.
Right.
This therapy. And so I sort of alluded to the out of the 70 patients that have been treated, alluded to a subpopulation that seemed to benefit the most. I'm not going to sort of divulge any secrets now, but there was a cohort of patients that were treated, initiated on this therapy as they were transitioning from high flow nasal cannula to mechanical ventilation somewhere during that period and placed on that therapy. And it seems to have an impact in that population specifically. The reason this happened, I think I can talk about this in generalities without any HIPAA violations, but in generalities, there was a clinician who was sick with COVID, who happened to know about this technology and asked for this therapy in place of being intubated.
Fascinating.
And was able to leave the hospital a week later.
Wow.
And he was getting ready to be intubated, and he was like, wait. And so that was a, light bulb moment. Everybody sort of started paying attention because that case was shared with everybody that had an interest in this technology. And then in that specific center, another healthcare provider was treated prior to getting intubated, and then another and another and another. And that's how it sort of grew. I never imagined that would be the patient population, but in the majority of those cases, those patients, not only do they not, if they were not on the vent before, that prevents intubation. Mm-hmm. If on the vent, that gets them off the ventilator quickly. None of them, they don't have end organ damage, extrapulmonary end organ damage like AKI. And we believe that it's because we're able to achieve source control. And this is as an adjunctive therapy to remdesivir. So it is, we believe that an antiviral plus this therapy, this approach, is better than an antiviral alone. There's a synergy that occurs that I think that exists that we're find out, when we look at the data, hopefully. Hopefully we'll be able to report our results of the Purify groups of studies. And the first phase, as I said, is Purify OBS, and that's on clinicaltrials.gov. It's already registered. Uh,
Mm.
and in fact, I should probably mention, uh, I don't know if you know about Kidney 360. It's the open access journal to the American Society of
Yes,
Nephrology.
they just launched
Yeah,
that.
so
Yes.
yeah, so Steve Olson and I were invited to write a editorial, a pro piece on why we thought extracorporeal blood purification could be helpful in COVID and beyond. And it's probably going to be released here any minute, any day now,
Fantastic.
and it should be available to read. Sort
Obviously,
of
I mean, please
over all
tweet that out
this
for us.
yeah.
So, I want to be respectful of your time, and one other thing I want to touch on, which we can spend many hours discussing, but just kind of want to get your feedback on it. You know, a lot of discussion about a vaccine coming out, right? And there's differing opinions about that, and then
Yeah.
of course the concept of herd immunity.
Yeah.
Two really big topics, but for the most part, what's your take on it as a physician and a healthcare leader who's
Yeah.
dealing with this on the very front lines of this?
Yeah, so I should probably make the statement right off the bat that herd immunity without vaccination, a vaccination program, is going to kill a lot of people.
Tell us why, because I want people to understand this.
Yeah, because in order to achieve herd immunity, a certain percentage of the population has to get infected so that they can have their natural immune system be the defense and thus acquire immunity. In order for us to achieve that, 60%, 70% infected in the population. Let's say mortality is 1%. We're talking about millions of deaths.
Right.
I don't know if we have there's no way we can tolerate that. A better way of achieving herd immunity is having like we're doing, a mass vaccine campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Vaccine is what achieves the immunity,
Mm-hmm.
and enough of a patient, enough of a percentage of the population become immune as a result of that vaccine. And the vaccine protects them from dying, and so
And then you can get closer to herd immunity because of that.
yeah, and you can get closer to herd immunity, and you can snuff out the virus because you can't transmit it to anybody. And so that's how you achieve herd immunity, by vaccination, not by natural ways, natural infection. That is a very flawed way of thinking. You're completely disregarding how many patients will die as a result of that approach.
Right. And I think you said something so important. And again, I haven't monitored everybody talking about this, but you're the first person that I've heard who conveyed it this way, where it's not only herd immunity, it's not only the vaccine, it's the combo of the two. And it's again, coincidentally, it's similar to what we just discussed, where it's not the therapeutic by itself, it's not the pharmaceutical, it's a combination of the two, that there's a synergistic effect. And I think the American public, the sooner they start to understand this, then I think they'll start to really appreciate it. Again, I've always said, like, medicine and healthcare has always had a marketing problem, and hopefully, this is something that can be solved. But I love that literally in a few seconds you conveyed it in a most convincing and understandable way.
Yeah, one thing I should say also about the vaccines that are coming out, there's a lot of misinformation out there about not only the effectiveness of vaccines, but also the side effect profile of vaccines. And there's an entire movement, as we all know, the anti-vax movement, that has really caught a lot of momentum. And I see comments that populate my feed of folks that don't really trust vaccines in general, and won't trust, and plan to not trust the vaccine that's coming out. What I can say is that, I think the FDA and these companies that are producing these vaccines, although, the studies have been accelerated, they're not taking any shortcuts. I mean, they did their phase 1 and 2, they're doing their phase 3, they're collecting the data, they're looking at all the side effects. Yes, they're going to apply for an emergency use authorization, but that's because people are dying left and right. We need to do something. And so I'm a little bit concerned that people are going to be very hesitant to take the vaccine. However, the thing that is encouraging, you know, I'm technically and officially not political because I can't be, you know, I'm in the military. What I'm seeing is a celebration of this advance from both sides, from
Right.
both and the right or the middle, you know, everybody's celebrating this as being a huge advance. And that gives me a little hope because maybe, just maybe, we could all have a unified campaign to push this vaccine and make sure that everybody's covered so that we can save lives.
Yeah.
You know, I think I was having a virtual meeting with Dr. Bob Watcher, the chair of UCSF, and Dr. Mark Anderson from Johns Hopkins, and we were talking about this, and it got brought up that maybe what we can do as a community is healthcare providers are probably going to be among the first people to get these vaccines. Maybe we should start a mass social media marketing campaign showing ourselves getting the vaccine and like literally showing people, hey, we're healthcare providers, we're getting the vaccine. If it's safe for us, it's going to be safe for you. And then just spread it that way, because we need to do something to get everybody on the same page. And I think that was a great idea. I was
Absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned that. I mean, one of the great books that I love to read, it's an older book, but it's called Diffusion of Innovations. And this gentleman, he's since passed away, studied a lot of how innovation diffuses. And one of those big things is social proof. You have to see other people adopting it and everything. And I think, like you, I'm very neutral and moderate. I claim no political party. I'm just a cynical observer of American politics. But I think I can understand the Americans who are skeptical, because I think, and I tell people, unfortunately, in a pandemic, it's something that's hurting us. But something that's a feature of being an American is we don't listen to authority. We have a lot of entrepreneurs and business because of that. But again, in a pandemic, that's hurt us a lot. And I think that there's been an even bigger resistance because, and I see it on Instagram, on Facebook, people posting it, where private companies like the movie theaters or other places will say, we will not allow you in or do business with you or do this or that unless you show proof of that vaccine. And I think most Americans, they get tense saying, well, what do you mean you're going to tell me what I can do? Yeah. And I think that this, seeing again, on both sides, Joe Biden and Donald Trump celebrate, a vaccine. I think having more healthcare professionals talk about and educate the public, that's what needs to happen. And at least from a marketing standpoint, those are the people that need to be leading this, not the private sector. Because if there's something that every American feels is they don't trust private industry or corporations. And so I think it makes me very happy and hopeful to hear you say that, because at least there's a way that the majority of the population will be open to vaccinations, and those who choose not to be, hopefully there's enough of the people who get vaccinated that we can get closer to that herd immunity. So I'm very relieved and happy to hear that it's going to be a combo of these two things. Right. And again, from a risk management standpoint, that's the better way to go, and not saying it's only this or it's only that.
Yeah, there's it's definitely encouraging, and there's definitely hope on the horizon. I hope that a year from now, the economy is going to be completely opened up. COVID numbers are going to be near zero because of that herd immunity that has been achieved, and we're going to be moving on with our lives. And boy, it's hard to really imagine that happening right now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of all the stress and what we're seeing in the hospitals all over the country is just heartbreaking. Reading about what my colleagues are going through, and I'm about to start my 5 nights of ICU shifts here this weekend, and I'm going to get back and I already know that they're already starting to get not overwhelmed yet, but starting to get an increased uptick in COVID patients. That's pretty significant, much more so than it was in the spring.
Yeah, and it's really unfortunate. It's again, it's hard to see sort of the light at the end of the tunnel, just because we're in the fog of war right now, so to speak. And I told my wife that like this, it hasn't even been a year, but it feels like we've been doing this for a long time.
Yep.
But maybe I'm too optimistic, but I really believe that uh, what we're going through 2020 as a world, but for us as a country, it's in its own way ushering in a golden age of how we look at our systems, from healthcare to economics to businesses, communications, everything. And as soon as we make it, on the out the other end, I think we're going to see just um, the next level of what America can be. And I think it's going to be really fantastic. But we gotta unify it as a country and make it through this as well.
Yeah,
Um,
agree with you.
yeah. Well, Dr. Chung, hey, thank you so much for spending some time with us. I'm going to selfishly have you back on again, just because, if there's ways that we can amplify thought leaders like yourself, people who we should be listening to when it comes to how we should think about medicine and the science, it's incredibly invaluable. And we appreciate your bravery and service and leadership in our country during these times.
Yeah, thanks, Omar, for the opportunity again. I very much enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Thank you again. Stay on for a second. We'll chat. And thank you all for listening. This has been Hills and Valleys. Check the show notes. I'm going to leave some of the links that Dr. Chung's mentioned along with his Twitter handle. So be sure to follow him. And we will see you next time. Bye for now. Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Hills and Valleys. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button on our podcast. That way you're notified of new episodes as they're released. And if you're not already, please go ahead and follow Potrero Medical on all our social platforms: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And we'll see you next time.